As we know, Serie A released the league released initiatives to combat racism in football, and in Serie A in particular. And of course, there's been some backlash because the artwork depicts 3 monkeys. And the whole point of it, according to the artist, was to, this is something that he's been associated to. He always paints monkeys. He's come out and said, I understand that this is going to be controversial, but I was inspired when I went to the Boxing Game match and watched Inter against Napoli. And I realized that the sort of horrible things that Kalidou Koulibaly had to face in that match, and the type of slurs that he was forced to listen to, including calling him things like monkey. And he wanted to, in his artwork, at least show that at a primitive level, we are all monkeys. And that was the idea behind the paintwork. Now, he's trying to make a point. Many have argued that this is not the time to make a point, but perhaps not go with something so inappropriate. And this is just one of the many things that have been talked about.
Yeah, I don't think the focus should be on the artwork so much, because this guy's an artist. He does art, and you can like it, you could dislike it.
And specifically, he does art of monkeys.
He does art of monkeys.
Racism, 6 months. Just a thing he does.
So basically, and this artwork is from 6 months ago. It was commissioned for the Coppa Italia final. The 3 monkeys supposedly have different features representing different parts of the world.
Yeah,
whatever.
Asian.
It's art. Artists can do what they like. The issue here is twofold. A, while it's commendable that you decide to choose, you've decided that, in our fight against racism, we're going to commission a different artist every year to go and produce a work of art, sort of describing how we feel about racism. That's great. Don't commission this guy who draws monkeys.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the first point. Secondly, after he's done it back in May, don't wheel him out again in November after we've had everything that we've already had this season, right? With Lukaku, with Kessie, with a whole bunch of different club chairmen saying stupid things. Don't wheel him out again, because all it's going to do is it's going to overshadow the other initiatives that they're putting forward, some of which I think are really, really good. And we're just going to end up talking about this, because what the world is going to see is Serie A's banner against racism involves pictures of 3 monkeys. How stupid and tone-deaf and unprofessional do you have to be?
Yeah, I think that's all really well said, and there's a few sort of points that tie off it. First of all, this artwork wasn't necessarily originally intended as a banner. The way it was presented in his press conference, which is where it gets picked up from, makes it look like one. It's not necessarily intended to be used like that. But I think that the point which I always come back to with this stuff is, because look, I don't think anyone is suggesting, by the way, that this was ill-intended. I don't think that anyone who put this artwork up thought they were had a malicious intention with it. No, of course not. But it's the failure to ask these questions, sort of, frankly, of anyone who might have a more
how will this be perceived?
A more considered outlook on
down?
it. Yeah, there's a degree of sort of I don't know what the right word is, arrogance to not actually asking some black players, hey,
you don't need to ask black players about this. You just need to ask anybody with a pulse.
Well,
seriously, like it's not. This is not about how would a black person perceive? No, this is ill-placed and wrong for anybody. The only place that this belongs is in an art gallery where an artist makes a statement and he can go and defend his art. Yeah. You are doing a campaign. Part of that is PR. You are selling a product, which is Serie A. You do not want to associate this with your product in a campaign against racism when you've had all these issues of racism before. It doesn't take a black person. It doesn't take a communication specialist.
Well,
it just takes a normal person.
No, I understand where you're coming from, Gab, but I think the point is at a certain point when you keep getting these things wrong, which Serie A has, unfortunately.
We don't say as a whole. As far as the league is concerned, as far as the league is concerned, right? Because we always speak about this as a whole when it's convenient, and then we speak of individuals when it's convenient the other way, right? Yeah. And this kind of bugs me, right? So we talk about the things that the FA gets wrong with their punishments. They're responsible for the punishments and stuff like that. All the league is responsible for, the only thing they're responsible for is marketing the game, right? They've come out of their way saying, well, we can't do much about the punishments because it's the FA's fault, right? well, we can work with. We can't do much when Cellino goes and says something stupid, or Verona's Twitter account, because we're just a league, right? Now, finally, they've come forward. They've put this letter out. Was a month ago, with all 20 clubs saying that they're committed to this. They follow it up. They do something which I think is really good and doesn't exist in most other countries. They create kind of an athletes council, one representative per team. Most of them are people of color. Some of them are not. Who are supposed to be liaisons to the league. Whenever they experience issues of racism, they're supposed to be able to speak freely and whatever. That's really, really good to have some representation. Make the players, especially players of color, part of the conversation. That's really, really good. This facial recognition software that they're paying for, I could take or leave from a civil rights perspective, but you know what? If this is the way you want to go down, fine, right? This is their job. This is what they have to do. And then they go and they screw this up by doing this.
Yeah, and I just kind of, sorry, I really don't want to talk over you, but I feel like I don't want to get painted here as saying something that I didn't, and it's a sensitive topic, and I don't want to be sort of portrayed as sort of having said something I didn't there. And I think that my point here is, Gab, which I think is a nuanced one, and I think no one ever wants to talk about these things with nuance, is that part of the problem in this conversation, a big part of it, in my opinion, is that older Italians in particular, a generation of Italians, just have a very different perspective on what constitutes racism. And that is something that that isn't actually about football. It isn't about malicious intent. Again, it's just about a different conception of what is an act of that is going to offend people, that is going to be a racist act. And I think that you don't get over that by staying within your closed community and shaking each other's hands and patting each other on the back. You get over that by opening your conversation out and consulting outside. And that's what I was trying to say.
No, that's fine. But what I'm saying is what's really concerning here is that these are 20 different clubs. I think a quarter of them or more are owned and run by people who are not Italian. Some of them are actually people of color. Mm-hmm. Some of these are people who come from the Premier League, who are supposed to have this worldview and this experience, right? They're supposed to be part of the conference. You can't go and pawn this all off as usual, like, older white Italian men, because this is a different cohort of people who are involved in the conversation, right? The head of their newly named head of marketing, the guy who's supposed to open up all these new league offices around the world and stuff like that. He's some sort of whiz kid. He was in Dubai. He's in his mid-30s. He was educated at Cambridge. This is a different conversation now, right? And this is what makes it even worse. I think this is incompetence, and I also think to some degree this is clubs dropping the ball, because I kind of have a problem with clubs like Roma and Milan, who have been in the forefront of this. I mean, Roma certainly came out, I don't know if Milan have, I assume they will, distancing themselves from this. But guys, the league works for you. There's only 20 clubs in La Liga Serie A. You guys represent 10% of them, throwing the others, right? I know that there's a very complicated situation right now because there's no head and Lotito and all this nonsense. But you guys have to speak up. You guys have to own this too. Until you realize you're all on the same team and you guys all signed that letter, you guys should be the ones knocking heads and saying, who put this out there? Why? We want the names. We want them to go and explain it, because you know what? Roma and Milan, and again, I'm not picking on them. I'm picking those guys out because they're the first ones to go and jump on these things. You guys need to come out and say what the hell happened here and why, and how can we make sure it never happens again?
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.